I've never been the kind of person who believes in monsters. Growing up, I heard my fair share of ghost stories, small-town legends, and late-night tales whispered around campfires, but I always filed them under imagination, exaggeration, or just plain lies. That all changed one spring evening in Enfield, Illinois, back in the early 70s. What I saw, and more importantly what I felt, that night still clings to me like a shadow I can't shake. At the time, I was living just outside of town, renting a modest little house that backed up to a stretch of woods. I was young, working odd jobs, mostly keeping to myself. Enfield was small and quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. People waved at each other from porches, kids played in the street until dusk, and gossip moved faster than the mail truck. It was comforting in a way, and yet those woods behind my house always felt different. I remember stepping outside just after dark, the air still heavy with the scent of spring rain. The crickets were alive, the frogs calling out in rhythmic croaks from the ditches. The night seemed ordinary enough, except for one detail I can't forget, the silence that rolled in, sudden and absolute, as if someone had flipped a switch. One moment, the night was alive with sound. The next, it was as though the world was holding its breath. I froze, standing on my back steps, straining my ears, no crickets, no frogs. Not even the rustle of leaves, just silence. And then, in that eerie stillness, I heard something else, something faint, almost like a dragging noise, as if something heavy was moving slowly through the brush. At first, I thought maybe it was a dog or even a deer. But the sound was uneven, awkward, with a strange scrape between each step. My gut tightened. I told myself not to be ridiculous, but every instinct in me screamed that something wasn't right. Curiosity or maybe stupidity got the better of me. I grabbed the flashlight from inside and shined it toward the tree line. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating branches and undergrowth, but nothing moved. I held my breath, listening. That's when I heard it, a sharp, high-pitched screech, not an animal sound I recognized. Not a bird, not a fox, not anything I'd ever heard before. The sound was unnatural, like nails on glass mixed with a shrill whistle, and it rattled something deep inside me. I should have gone inside, locked the door, pretended nothing had happened. But something compelled me forward, as though my feet were moving before my brain caught up. I stepped off the porch, my flashlight jittering across the grass, every hair on my body standing on end. The dragging sound came again, closer now. My light landed on something low to the ground, maybe 30 feet away, moving at a strange angle. My brain scrambled to make sense of it, but the shape didn't fit anything familiar. It wasn't walking like a man, and it wasn't moving like any animal I'd seen before. I remember the first clear glimpse I got. It was pale, almost ghostly white, with spindly arms that seemed far too long for its body. It moved on 2 legs, but awkwardly, like it didn't quite know how to use them. Its head was large, bulbous, with eyes that reflected the beam of my flashlight in a glow that made my stomach lurch. And it wasn't just the way it looked, it was the way it moved. It had this jerky, unnatural rhythm, as if every step was wrong, as if its body wasn't designed for this world. The creature froze when the light hit it, crouched low, almost like it was deciding whether to bolt or to leap straight at me. My hand shook so badly the beam of light danced across the trees, and in that second of fumbling, it let out another one of those shrieks. The sound cut straight through me, leaving me dizzy, disoriented, almost sick. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. I could feel my chest pounding, my throat tight. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the thing darted into the trees. But darted isn't quite right. It didn't run like a man, or even an animal. It bounded, it leapt. In 3 terrifying strides, it vanished into the shadows, the sound of its movements echoing in my ears long after I could no longer see it. For a long while, I just stood there in the yard, staring at the empty patch where it had been, my mind racing to explain what I'd just seen. My first thought was maybe I'd imagined it. A trick of the light, stress, lack of sleep, but deep down, I knew I hadn't. The details were burned too clearly into my brain, carved in with fear I couldn't shake. When I finally forced myself back inside, I locked every door and window, pulling the curtains tight. But the silence outside lingered, pressing against the walls of the house. I couldn't sleep that night, not really. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the glass made me jolt awake, convinced that thing was right outside. I didn't know it then, but that was just the beginning, the first encounter. The first sign that something in Enfield wasn't what it seemed. The next day, I tried to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe it had been a trick of shadows, or some animal mangled by disease, making it look strange. That's what I told myself over coffee at the kitchen table, staring blankly out the window at the tree line. But no amount of rationalizing eased the heaviness in my chest, the memory of those glowing eyes fixed on me in the beam of my flashlight. I didn't tell anyone at first. In a town like Enfield, rumors spread like wildfire, and the last thing I wanted was to be branded the guy who'd lost his mind. But as I sat at work the next day, trying to concentrate on the numbers in front of me, I overheard two men talking near the break room. They were whispering, but I caught enough to stop me cold. "Somebody's chickens torn apart last night," one said. "Yeah, and tracks all over the yard. Three-toed. Never seen anything like it." I felt my stomach drop. 3 toes. I didn't know what to do with that. Coincidence? Maybe, but it rattled me enough that when I got home that night, I didn't sit on the porch like I usually did. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and left every light on in the house. It felt childish, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of scratching. Not loud, not obvious, just the faintest scrape, like nails or claws dragging lightly against wood. I sat up in bed, holding my breath. At first, I thought maybe it was a tree branch tapping the siding, but the rhythm was too deliberate. Scratch. Pause, scratch. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bed and crept to the living room. The sound was coming from the back door. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it might burst. I flicked on the porch light, and for a moment the scratching stopped. The silence was worse somehow, like the thing knew I was standing just on the other side of that door. Then, with a sudden slam, something hit the wood hard enough to rattle it in its frame. I jumped back, nearly tripping over the coffee table. My hands were shaking, my mouth dry as dust. And then came the sound again, scratching, but this time higher up, like it was clawing at the window beside the door. I forced myself to peek through the curtain, just a sliver. What I saw made me drop the fabric and stumble back. It was there, pressed against the glass. Its face, or what I can only describe as a face, was grotesque. A bulbous head, far too large, with skin stretched tight and pale, almost translucent. Those eyes burned in the porch light, reflecting back at me with an unnatural, almost intelligent glow. Its mouth, or maybe just a slit, was open, and though I couldn't hear it through the glass, I swore I could feel the shrill screech it had made the night before vibrating in my bones. I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at me not to make a sound. The creature leaned against the window, its long, spindly fingers leaving streaks on the glass as it dragged them downward. Then, without warning, it darted sideways, out of sight. I didn't dare move. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then I heard it again, the dragging, uneven gait, circling the house. Windows rattled, claws scraped against siding. It was testing, probing, searching for a way in. I turned off every light, crouched low in the corner of the room, clutching the bat like it could save me. At some point the noises stopped. I sat there for what felt like hours, every muscle in my body tense, ears straining for any sound. But the silence remained, heavy and suffocating. When dawn finally bled through the curtains, I dared to look outside. Tracks, they were all over the yard, sunk deep into the wet ground from last night's rain. 3 toes, long, clawed impressions that circled the house again and again. I wasn't the only one. That morning, the town was buzzing with talk. People had heard the screeches. Others had found tracks in their yards. A few even swore they'd seen something lurking near the edge of the fields. One man claimed he'd shot at it, but whatever it was had leapt away into the woods before he could even reload. The sheriff brushed it off as hysteria, maybe a misidentified animal or a prank. But the fear in people's voices was real. Something was stalking Enfield, and I knew exactly what it was. That night, I considered packing up and leaving town altogether. But a strange mix of fear and determination kept me rooted. I had seen it. It had come to my door. Running felt useless, like it would follow me wherever I went. So I waited, and sure enough, it came back. This time, I was ready. I sat in the dark with my flashlight and bat, every light off, hard hammering in my chest. Around 1 a.m. the silence fell again, that same eerie hush I'd noticed the first night, and then came the dragging sound. I flicked on the flashlight and pointed it straight at the window. And there it was, closer than ever, pressed against the glass, its eyes locking onto mine with a hunger that made my blood run cold. But instead of fleeing when the light hit it, the creature stayed. It tilted its head slowly, curiously, like it was studying me. Its long fingers tapped against the glass in a rhythm that felt almost deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. And then it smiled. Not wide, not obvious, but enough to curl that slit of a mouth into something that made my stomach twist. It knew me, it remembered me, and it wasn't going anywhere. That grin never left me. It wasn't human, it wasn't animal. It was something in between, some mockery of a smile that told me everything I needed to know. This thing wasn't just a beast wandering in the dark, it was intelligent. I froze in place, the flashlight beam trembling as my hand shook. The creature didn't flinch. Instead, it raised one of its long, pale fingers and dragged it slowly across the glass. The sound screeched through the quiet like nails on a chalkboard. That broke me. I shouted, part fear, part anger, and swung the bat at the window. The glass shuddered but didn't break, and the thing leapt back with a sudden burst of speed, moving in that jerky, almost insect-like motion I'd seen before. I thought it was gone. I thought I'd scared it away. But then the sound came again from the roof. Thump, drag, thump. I craned my neck, heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. The creature was climbing, its limbs scraping against the shingles, its weight shifting unnaturally across the house. Then, with terrifying force, it began slamming itself down onto the roof like it was trying to punch through. I stumbled back into the kitchen, fumbling for the shotgun I kept in the cabinet. My hands were slick with sweat, slipping on the cold steel. By the time I loaded it and pointed it at the ceiling, the pounding had stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. It meant it was moving again, hunting. Suddenly, the kitchen window exploded inward. Shards of glass rained across the floor as the creature lunged halfway inside, its arms stretching farther than I thought possible. Its clawed fingers grazed the countertop as I fired blindly. The blast echoed through the house, the recoil nearly knocking me backward. The thing screeched, a sound so shrill it rattled the dishes in the cabinets. It jerked back, disappearing into the night as quickly as it had come. Smoke filled the kitchen, my ears rang from the shot. I stood there trembling, shotgun still aimed at the broken window, waiting for it to return, but it didn't. For hours I stayed like that, watching, waiting, shaking. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, and only then did I lower the gun. I stepped outside to see the damage. The yard was torn up with tracks, deep three-toed prints circled the house again and again, some pressed so hard into the earth they'd filled with water from the morning dew. On the porch, streaks of dark liquid, thick, almost tar-like, glistened in the sunlight. I don't know if it was blood, but it marked the path where the creature had pulled itself away. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe the shot had wounded it badly enough to drive it off for good. But deep down, I knew better. Because that night, when I tried to sleep, I dreamed of it. Those burning eyes, that grotesque smile. And when I woke up, heart pounding, I swore I heard it again in the distance. Not close, not at my door, but out there, somewhere in the woods, waiting. People in Enfield still talk about the horror, though never for long. The stories spread, sightings, tracks, strange noises. And though no one ever admits it outright, I can see the same thing in their eyes that I see in my own reflection, fear that it isn't gone. Fear that it never will be. Because the Enfield Horror doesn't just visit once. It lingers, it learns, and once it finds you, it never really lets you go. So, if you ever find yourself out here in Illinois, walking near the tree line when the night grows to quiet, pay attention. Listen closely, and if you hear the dragging steps of something with 3 claws, whatever you do, don't look it in the eyes. And if you enjoyed hearing my story, do me a favor, leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment below telling me what you think. Would you face the Enfield Horror, or would you run?